All right, so for this week's question and answers from 717, there's a couple of really good questions. They have to do with this issue of a theodicy, where you have the question about God and the existence of evil, and if God is sovereign and omniscient and omnipotent, in other words, if he has complete rule, knowledge, and power, how does evil happen if God is also good? And this has been a long debated item, and I'm not going to be able to, in a brief 717 video, answer every question on a theodicy. And for that matter, I'm not going to be able to resolve every issue I have on the theodicy. But I think the essential thing is this, that God allows evil. There's no other way around this if we believe God is sovereign, omniscient, and omnipotent. Allowing evil does not mean he intends it or celebrates it or is a fan of it. It just means that he allows it. And so the allowing of evil to occur means that God, in the creation of the garden and the tree in the center of the garden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, puts forward the possibility for people to either honor him or rebel against him. And I think it's a legitimate offer by God to Adam and Eve to either honor him or rebel against him. So he can know that they would rebel against him while still offering to them a free will choice to either stay in obedience with him or to rebel. And so in this moment, you have humanity in its purest form of decision making, to either freely obey the God that made them or to take on to themselves their own autonomy or to be a rule or law unto themselves. And Adam and Eve, in that moment of representing really all of humanity, choose to, instead of obey God, to become a God unto themselves. And so if you say, is God ultimately responsible then? So if you ask why the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is so that human free will can be played out at some level. If you say, well, then isn't God ultimately responsible for sin? He's ultimately responsible for sin being able to happen. He's not the one who made Adam and Eve sin. He's not the one that forced them to sin. Certainly, the book of James says God doesn't force anyone to sin. He's not a fan of sin in that regard, but he does create man with the ability, humanity with the ability to either obey him or sin. And in that moment, they sin. But he knows that and thus ushers in his greater purpose, which is to demonstrate all of his attributes, including grace, mercy, forgiveness, attributes that you wouldn't have seen apart from a free will beings who either obey him or don't, and then ultimately choose not to. So yes, God, you could say God is ultimately responsible for everything. I mean, he could have stopped sin. He could have cut off Adam and Eve from the tree. He could have destroyed the universe after Adam and Eve rebelled, all of those things. But clearly a greater purpose for God is not the elimination of sin by Adam and Eve or all people. The greatest goal of God is his glory. And his glory is most displayed not just in righteousness, but also in grace, mercy, justice, wrath, all of those things on display in the both fall of humanity and the redemption of humanity. And so, yes, God is ultimately responsible for everything that happens in the universe. But this doesn't mean he forced Adam and Eve to sin. He created them with the free will to make that choice. Is Adam and Eve then a bad person? Are they bad persons? And the answer to that is they were neutral persons, and in their choice to become in place of God, they became evil, bad, sinful, like the rest of us. And in fact, plunged the rest of us into that very mindset of choosing to be a law unto ourselves and rebel against our Creator. The last question is this. So the first question was, why did God put the tree in the center of the garden? The answer is for human free will to be possible, for the decision for right and wrong, to either obey him out of free will or not. The second thing is, if God created us with the ability to sin, isn't he ultimately responsible? He is ultimately responsible for everything that happens in the universe, but he didn't force Adam and Eve to sin. He created them with the ability to sin or not sin. Even though he knew they would sin, that doesn't mean he made them sin. Every parent of a 2-year-old knows they're going to do certain things. That doesn't mean the parent made them do it. We just know what our kids will do. The next thing is Adam and Eve, are they bad persons? The answer is they were neutral, are good, are pure, and then in their decision to sin, they became evil, yes, and plunged the rest of us into that. And then the last thing is, did God make a mistake in this? And the answer is no. The definition of a mistake by God would mean something that he did not either foresee or something that produced a lesser outcome. I believe God made the greatest universe he could possibly make, the one that would display his glory the most. His glory is most displayed not in Adam and Eve's forever obedience, but in his redemption and saving of them. God's glory is the ultimate goal of the universe, not Adam and Eve's obedience, God's glory. This is a God-centered universe, not a man-centered universe. So when we ask questions like that, we have to ask, what is the perfect universe for God to display his glory? Not what is the perfect universe so that I could avoid any discomfort in my life or that trouble would go away. So because of that, yes, God made the perfect universe. He allowed Adam and Eve to sin, knowing that the greatest demonstration of his glory would happen through their rebellion against him. All right, the last thing is, if animals don't have souls, how is it that the serpent is punished? This is a good question. And I think what's going on there is that apparently the serpent was a unique being. We're told that in Genesis 3:1. Whatever this creature is before being cursed has some kind of unique role in the creation as an animal, more intelligent than others, craftier than others is what we're told, maybe more influenced by the devil, able to be influenced by the devil. He actually carries on a conversation with Eve. What this serpent looks like before the curse, I don't know, but he is complicit in or participates in the devil's temptation of Eve. And because of his complicit participation in that moment, he is then cursed to a status which even now people don't like snakes. Even now people react to them in ways that are quite shocking. So I don't know that animals have souls, but that animal did at least, and what the implications, it doesn't sound like an eternal judgment by God on them. It just sounds like, hey, because of the role they played and the trouble they brought into the world, the role the initial serpent played and the trouble brought into the world, that God basically puts him in a position, puts all future creatures associated with that initial serpent in a position so as the people to view them negatively, harshly, as a continual reminder of what happened in the garden. There's this animal that sleeks on the ground, that's slimy, that people react to negatively, that people don't want to be around, that they try to stay away from, that kind of thing. They're all continual reminders of this initial temptation by the serpent, involvement either directly or indirectly by the devil in the midst of this temptation of Eve. And so I don't think it's that the devil brings the serpent into a place of eternal damnation, but a temporary curse between now and the time of ultimate redemption. All right, that's 717 questions. They were hard this week, and I probably didn't answer any of them to your satisfaction. So whichever ones I didn't, re-ask them. All right, we'll see you guys Sunday night.